And a good evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on Facebook Live, YouTube, and Twitter. I am Bryson Carver, and that might have been one of the greatest weekends in sports in years. Now, normally, sometimes I'll come in on Monday and I'll say, "Hey, it's one of the best weekends in sports we've had in weeks." No, in years. Tyson Fury knocked out Deontay Wilder. What a fight that was. Win 11 rounds. I mean, just incredible. The number one team in the country, Alabama, lost to Texas A&M. We had some outstanding NFL games over the weekend. Not going to talk a ton of playoff baseball, but, look, I'm wearing my Red Sox hat. I had a good weekend. I'm wearing my Tennessee shirt because my Vols got it done against South Carolina. My Cowboys won yesterday. And, this happened.
There have been 7 walk-off homers by a catcher in postseason history. Do I hear number 8? Red Sox win it! Christian Vasquez doing his Carlton fist!
One more win, fellas. One more win, and we're in the ALCS. Game 4 of that series is tonight at 7, about an hour from now on FS1. So definitely looking forward to that. What a game last night. What a crazy 13th inning as well. So lots to talk about today. Let's start Chiefs, Bills, Sunday Night Football, the most anticipated game of the weekend without a question. Rematch of the AFC Championship game. Now I picked Buffalo in this game. Said Buffalo's going to win this game 41-38. Turns out 38's all Buffalo needed. And they didn't win. They won in blowout fashion. That was actually my upset of the week. And by the way, my upset of the week, and if I were a betting man, hit on both of them. So I feel good about myself right now. But here's the thing about Buffalo. Okay, we saw last night that they're a better football team than Kansas City. There's no question about it. Okay, quarterback position, yeah, Kansas City's better. But Josh Allen, as I've said religiously on the show, he's got a strong case to be a top 5 quarterback in all the league. Kansas City's got a better receiving core, but Buffalo's is no slouch either. Right? Knox, that tight end, he outplayed Travis Kelce last night. O-line for Buffalo, better than Kansas City. And then defense, I mean, it's not even close. They had 3 turnovers. But I want to focus, I'll get to Buffalo in just a second, but I want to focus on Kansas City. Because everybody going into the season, it felt like it was a shoo-in, right? Every analyst out there picked Tampa and Kansas City to match up in Super Bowl 56. I said, okay, you got one half of that right. Tampa's going to win the NFC. I'll get to my Cowboys later in the show. I think they got a puncher's chance. I had them facing Tampa in the NFC Championship game before the season started, but got a long way to go. Got that right. Kansas City is not going to win the AFC. Heck, I'm not even sure if they're going to win their division. I'll get to the Chargers after I talk about the Chiefs, but I'll say this. As a Cowboys fan, that game looked really familiar last night. Because the team that Kansas City reminded me of the most was the 2020 Dallas Cowboys. I mean, think about it. Brilliant play caller, right? I mean, look at the Cowboys with Kellen Moore. I mean, he's pulling all kinds of stuff out of his bag, right? Well, he was there last year. Dak Prescott, he was there through 5 games last year. They had a great receiving core. They couldn't stop anybody. And it's time to acknowledge the fact that Kansas City is no longer a Super Bowl contender, at least this year. Their defense, ladies and gentlemen, is atrocious. They have given up over 30 or more points in every single game they played, except for the one game they gave up 29 to the Cleveland Browns in week 1. So thus far, Kansas City has not given up less than 28 all season long. This defense, ladies and gentlemen, is atrocious. It is bad. They cannot stop anybody. I mean, this Kansas City defense, I mean, let's be honest. It's really like the hydroxychloroquine of the NFL. It doesn't help the situation. It just makes it worse, a lot worse. And we can't go without criticizing Patrick Mahomes either. Okay, Patrick Mahomes is third in the NFL among quarterbacks in turnovers. This is the best quarterback in the league, right? At least we all, for the most part, I think we all acknowledge Mahomes is the best quarterback in the league. And the only two quarterbacks in all football who have more turnovers than Pat Mahomes, Zach Wilson, Trevor Lawrence, two rookies. Mahomes lost a fumble last night. It was a bad play. And I'll to be fair to Patrick Mahomes, the two interceptions really weren't, I wouldn't say not completely his fault. He had something to do with them. But the first throw went right through Tyreek Hill's hands. Micah Hyde, tip drill to the house, right? And then in the fourth quarter, defensive end made an unbelievable play of intercepting Mahomes. And I want to address something as well. Is, that terrible, it was a bad call. I mean, not only was it a bad call, it was an atrocious call, right? The roughing the passer call against Kansas City on third down. Kansas City got basically a punt interception. Josh Allen on third down at his own, 10-yard line, just threw it deep, hoping somebody catching. If a Kansas City player caught, it's the equivalent to a punt, right? And Kansas City got the interception, but it was called back. Buffalo was given an automatic first down because of a roughing the passer call that we all know that was not roughing the passer, even in today's rules. But are you telling me, Kansas City, that if y'all get that roughing the passer call, you're going to win the game? Because first of all, even if Kansas City goes down, scores, it's a one-score game. You trust your defense to stop Buffalo? Really? They can't stop anybody. Philadelphia, albeit they looked pretty good yesterday against Carolina. We'll get to the other NFL games later in the show. They look good. Philly didn't punt against Kansas City last week. They didn't punt. This isn't the Cowboys offense or the Buccaneers offense or even Buffalo's last night. It's Philadelphia. They're not exactly world beaters. And Kansas City couldn't stop them. So wasn't it predictable that Buffalo and Josh Allen just had a field day on those guys? And so when we went into the season, heck, when we went into last year's Super Bowl, I talked about this as one of the first live episodes of Carving It Up. I talked about, Kansas City going into Super Bowl 55 against Tampa Bay. Everybody's talking dynasty. I'm like, hold on a minute. You go a half a century without winning a Super Bowl title. You finally get one. Congratulations. That'll make you a dynasty. And we all know dynasty, you got to put multiple championships on top of one another. You heard, I think it was Frank Clark last year going into last season with the old LeBron Miami quote, the infamous, not one, not two, not three, not four. You only got one. Like, you can't get, multiple rings unless someone didn't tell me you can win multiple rings in a season. You can only get number two. As I quote Tom Brady all the time, what does he say? His favorite ring? The next one. That's why he's got 7 of them. Kansas City, take a page out of the Brady playbook. Because they just went into the season, let's be honest, they went into the season thinking we're going to run it back. Right? They fixed the offensive line, which everybody said was the big problem in the Super Bowl. Their defense wasn't all that great last year. It was better. Listen, it was better than this year. But it wasn't, the 2000 Ravens by any stretch of the imagination, or the 85 Bears, right? So, listen, Kansas City, as of today, I'm going to go on a limb. They're not going to win their division. Chargers are a better football team. They just are. Chargers are better. We saw last night, Buffalo is absolutely better. There is no question about that. I have Buffalo beating Kansas City on the road in the AFC Championship game to get to the Super Bowl. Well, it looks like if they do match up, that game is going to be in Buffalo, not at Arrowhead. So I think, we keep hearing, it's a wake-up call, right? Week 2 against Baltimore is a wake-up call. Or their first home loss, they lost to the Chargers, division rival. That was a wake-up call. Well, eventually, you got to get out of bed, right? I mean, you can't just have wake-up call after wake-up call unless you're the type of person that just, hits the snooze button over and over. You got to adjust. And this is a terrible defense. And right now, Patrick Mahomes is not playing good football right now. Now, listen, that's subject to change. He's going to get back on track. He is. But what are you going to do? What are you going to do? You got to fix this defense. And Stephon Gilmore was available. And either Carolina had a better offer or Kansas City didn't even go after him. Like, do we realize just 2 years ago? This isn't 5, 6, 2 years ago. Stephon Gilmore won Defensive Player of the Year. Like, he's one of the best corners in all football. We just haven't seen him much because he's been injured. And with a bad New England team. Grady Edwards says this one is the wake-up call. I don't know, man. I mean, look, here's the good news for Kansas City. Their schedule isn't crazy moving forward. They got Washington, Titans won't be easy. You got Derrick Henry now. Giants, Packers, it's Aaron Rodgers now. What's he going to do to your defense? You got the Raiders and then my Cowboys. Their schedule's pretty easy from there on out. You got Broncos, Raiders, Chargers is a loss, Steelers, Bengals, Broncos. So look, there's the tough part of Kansas City's schedule was the early part. I mean, that's the 3 teams they lost to. We all know we're going to make the playoffs. The one team they beat in week 1, we're pretty sure the Browns, they're going to make the playoffs, right? But this is not a championship team. Like, that team I saw last night, heck, the team I've seen 3 of the last 5 weeks, even last week when they beat Philly, that's not a Super Bowl winning team at all. Let's talk about the team that sure looked like one. The Los Angeles Chargers. Now, I said going into the 2020 draft that I believe my gut feeling told me, you could check the tape for yourself, that I believe Justin Herbert was going to be the best quarterback coming out of the draft because I actually liked Tua more than Herbert, and boy, does that look dumb today. My bad. But I worried about Tua's injury history. Right? Herbert didn't get hurt. Tua did a lot and is currently hurt on IR. And then Joe Burrow going to a bad franchise in Cincinnati. I didn't really know if it was going to work out. And so far, it's at least this season, it's been successful enough, at least for Cincinnati, by Cincinnati standards. But Justin Herbert, this dude's ridiculous. I mean, this guy is just special. I mean, you could tell. And I know Browns fans and Baker Mayfield defenders are saying, oh, look at Baker yesterday. If you watch that game and you saw those 2 quarterbacks on the same field, it don't even look similar. It's the difference between night and day. Justin Herbert is a guy who I think, I'm dead serious, by the end of the season, we might acknowledge that's top 5 quarterback. Because there's no question he's in the MVP discussion, right? The MVP discussion, you got Kyler Murray, and we're going to talk about Tom Brady briefly later in the show. My goodness, that dude doesn't age. Dak Prescott, Justin Herbert's name is in that discussion. I mean, he has played out of his mind. Maybe in his mind. I mean, was he a 4.0 biology student in college? I mean, come on. John just says Joe looks good. He does. And, once again, he got beat up yesterday, and Green Bay's defense ain't great, but I will address that later in the show. But you look at both guys, both Justin Herbert and Baker Mayfield have basically identical passer ratings, right? Baker was 122.5, Herbert was 122. Basically identical. Difference is QBR. That's right. I'm sure you hear Skip Bayless talk about it on Fox Sports all the time. It's rating from 0 to 100. Baker Mayfield's QBR was 53. Justin Herbert's was 85. They saw what I think we all saw. Grady asked, is Tua just a flat-out bust or just injury-prone? He looks okay when healthy, but he just isn't all that. When you compare him to Burrow and to Herbert, like I think a lot of times quarterbacks in some regard are judged in the context of the other guys at their position they were drafted with. I mean, Tua doesn't even look like he's in the same galaxy as Burrow, and especially Herbert. He's injury prone, and I think he's a bust. I think it's two bad things for Tua, and I hate it for him. John says Herbert definitely on another level. He's got the arm, he's got the accuracy. He's 6'6" and can beat you with his legs. I mean, he's essentially what we envision Trevor Lawrence coming to the league as, right? 6'6", big, strong, big arm, accurate, moves around well. Now, the difference is obviously Trevor Lawrence just with a garbage team. They lost their 20th straight game yesterday. They're just atrocious. But that's That's kind of where we're at right now, is the Chargers have a great defense. Now, albeit, Cleveland dropped 42. I understand. They ran for 235 yards, but Cleveland does that to a lot of teams. They're going to run over a lot of teams this season. They already have. They got the best running team in all of football. Great offensive line, maybe the best in all of football. Best running back tandem in the league with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. I mean, there's not much you can do to stop those guys. But, Baker working off the play action, it works perfectly for Cleveland. But do we realize that this Browns defense, which as of late has played outstanding, I mean, I gave them props. I feel like they didn't get enough credit for this. Last week against Kirk Cousins, who had been on fire, held them to 7 points at home. And I was like, okay, this Browns defense is better than I thought. And they were great through, three quarters. The Chargers dropped 26 in the fourth quarter against the Cleveland Browns. 26 in a quarter. Like that's Kansas City Chiefs explosive, right? That's like greatest show on turf explosive. I'm not necessarily comparing, the Chargers to those two teams. I'm not saying they're on that level. But man, like that looked like a Super Bowl team yesterday afternoon. Now, I believe there was a terrible call in that game too, but I've always said one call does not define a game. There's a lot of other instances, a holding call or interception in the first quarter that people forget about, that maybe you had a red zone turnover, which to the Browns' credit, and this might be a little discouraging, they're the first team in NFL history to put up 40 points, have over 500 yards of total offense, and lose. First team ever that's ever happened to. And frankly, I mean, they couldn't have played better offensively. But what do we know about this league? It is a quarterback-driven league. And the better quarterback got the better of the lesser guy. That's how it is. Grady says, also, is it just me, or do you think the NFL might start discriminating against the left-handed NFL quarterback? I mean, my gosh, Steve Young is the only good lefty you hear about. Tebow, Leinart, Tua, not a lot of success, to be honest, or at least recently. Yeah, I mean, you do obviously construct your team, and you certainly construct your offense around, whether your quarterback is a righty or a lefty. I think that might play to the detriment of lefties because, we talk about the emphasis of a left tackle, right? Because that's the blind side. Well, we don't take into account that that's the blind side of a right-handed quarterback, right? So, I mean, Tua was the first lefty that came into the league since, I think, Kellen Moore. And Kellen Moore's the offensive coordinator for the Cowboys now. So, he hasn't played a game since 2015. So it'd been about 5-6 years before the NFL even saw another left-handed quarterback. So, I think that's important as well. So, I think it does. I don't think it's necessarily like the rules, if that's what you're referring to, but I think it's more than anything team building, and especially more than anything offensive scheming. So that's how that is. I want to. It feels like we're just talking about AFC West teams today. I mean, talking about the Chiefs and talking about the Chargers. By the way, shouts to the Bills. They were outstanding yesterday. I mean, they look like the best team in the AFC. And I said they would be going into the season. You're talking about a team that's gotten better in the offseason, signed their quarterback long-term. So there's no, are you going to sign Josh Allen? They're like, no, this is our franchise quarterback. We're not just letting this guy walk. We're not going to play this like Dallas did for a year and a half with Dak before he finally got signed. We're going to lock our guy up, give him his money, which he 100% has earned and deserves, and go try and win some Super Bowls. And they certainly got a good shot this year. I have them getting to Inglewood, California at the beautiful SoFi Stadium. So, but look, it's week 5. We got a long way to go. And again, by the way, I will predict Colts Ravens, tonight's Monday night game, later in the show. Let me address, because I talked about it to start Friday's show because it was breaking news. The story broke right before we went live. The Jon Gruden thing. It's obviously grown quite exponentially since we talked about it on Friday. But we actually now know what Jon Gruden said about DeMaurice Smith. We don't know verbatim what he said about Commissioner Goodell. John just says, how about them Cowboys? Trust me, I'm going to get to that team later in the show. let me see if I can pull it up. I've got what he said about it. Yeah, so DeMaurice Smith, who at the time was the president of the Players Association in 2011, right? There's the lockout. There's, they're having disagreements with the NFLPA and the NFL, right? And Jon Gruden makes some disparaging comments that many articles I read called the comments vulgar toward the commissioner, and he took some racial shots at DeMaurice Smith. And I'm just gonna read it one time because it's frankly it's quite disgusting what Jon Gruden said about DeMaurice Smith. First of all, I call him Dumb-Morris Smith, D-U-M-B, as in dumb, questioning his intelligence. And how many times have we seen that in racial attacks? He says Dumb-Morris Smith has lips the size of Michelin tires. Talking about Michelin, the tire brand. So that's what he said, and it's, again, like I said, it's quite disgusting. And here's what Jon Gruden said. The Raiders looked awful yesterday, and it's kind of predictable. I predicted the Raiders. I put the graphic up before I even saw the story, so couldn't really take back my pick. But here's what Jon Gruden said after the game on this incident.
I'm not going to answer all these questions today. I think I've addressed it already. I can't remember a lot of the things that transpired 10 or 12 years ago, but I stand here in front of everybody apologizing. I know I'm not, I don't have an ounce of racism in me. I'm a guy that takes pride in leading people together, and I'll continue to do that for the rest of my life. And again, I apologize to D. Smith and anybody out there that I have offended.
It's interesting that he told the Wall Street Journal recently that he did that out of anger. He told the Wall Street Journal that he was angry at the time he wrote the email because of the NFL lockout and because of the direction players were taking under Smith's guidance in negotiation with league owners. And so, what do we know about racist attacks? At least by what Jon Gruden said. Black people with oversized lips has been a racist caricature in cartoons and things of that nature for decades now. And for that to be the first thing that came to Jon Gruden's mind in 2011, the fact that it was, because it's not like an interview, or it's not like a heated situation where it just came out of his mouth, right? Nope, it was an email. And he had a chance to look over it, look over what he said, and then click send. He knew what he was putting out there. And we certainly know in 2021 more than we did, obviously, in 2011, that anything can get exposed. Text, emails, anything. But when you know that there's the slight possibility that someone may see this and this could really get me in trouble. And secondly, this is the age-old racist argument, or the age-old racist, belief is, they're dumb. You question their intelligence. We saw a report earlier this year that is as bad as it gets for the National Football League. I'm not really sure what the updates are on it. I don't know if they're still investigating, but that some black players had alleged that the National Football League in their in the mental tests, that white players with the same that had the same score got more benefits because they assumed that black players were somewhat dumb, right? And so that's what they allege, and we'll see what happens from there. But I think it says a lot about Jon Gruden that was the first thing he went to. He could have attacked DeMaurice Smith in any way he wanted to, right? He could have taken a shot. Oh, he's a bad leader. Or he's, I don't like the job he's doing. Know this, that Jon Gruden was not an NFL coach in 2011. He was on Monday Night Football. He was with ESPN. So that's That's what I'm saying. So Grady says, Jon Gruden got Hillary Clinton. If you wouldn't say it to a human being, then you shouldn't say it. We're all guilty of saying things online we shouldn't say, but in a world where people go back and hold things against you, you just got to be smarter than this. And frankly, Grady, is just the wrong thing to say. I mean, you don't, regardless if people hear it or see it or not, you can't do that. John says, don't press send. Herm Edwards voice. Yeah, it's that simple. And again, you had time to think about this. And Raiders players, you put them on a lie detector and they'd fail miserably. You cannot tell me that the Raiders flat start, their offense was awful all day long against a pretty good Bears defense, but again, not the best defense in football. And the fact that, guys were defending him after the game. And look, I'll defend people. Some people are criticizing the Raiders players for, not speaking more about it after the game. Unfortunately, these guys really don't have much of a choice but to take Coach Gruden's side. They don't really have a choice. I mean, we saw what happened to two players that played for the San Francisco 49ers that, spoke against this kind of stuff, and neither of them are in the league now. So, players are aware that, hey, if I say something, I may not have a job. Because by all indications, Jon Gruden's not going to get fired. Now, I think he should be disciplined. For anything else, if the NFL wants to find a reason to suspend Jon Gruden, for anything else, he attacked the commissioner. I don't know if I've ever heard a coach, at least certainly in a press conference or in any leaked email of any sort, attack the commissioner of the league, Roger Goodell. I haven't. Maybe I'm oblivious to this. Grady says and agreed. Totally the wrong thing to say. Yes, and he says, "What do you think should happen to Gruden?" What I would do, what Bryson Carver would do, I'd suspend him for 2 games, and over the next 2 weeks, have the NFL look more into this. Because this came at a bad time. It came on Friday, 48 hours before the Raiders' next game. So, what are you going to do? What are the Raiders going to do? Mark Davis, Mike Mayock. What's the NFL going to do? Like it's I talked about it on Friday. It was a really interesting situation to see what somebody did, and it's bad. It's unfortunate, and look, do we know? I don't think we really have any way of knowing that, Jon Gruden still has that belief system. Certainly we hope not. But it's bad. Grady says, don't think the NFL can do much because at the time when he said it, he wasn't an employee of the league. That is true. And I don't know if that factors or not because, I don't think players can get suspended over past activity. Of course, then again, think about this, Grady. Ezekiel Elliott was accused of domestic violence back when he was at Ohio State. He got suspended for 6 games in his second year in the NFL. Like, Ezekiel Elliott was not employed by the NFL at that point. So I think they can look at that. And I think at least off the Ezekiel Elliott example, I think they can suspend you. Randy Gregory, let's use another Cowboy. He had some drug issues, right, coming into the league, and he got a 4-game suspension coming in. So, I think that's place factor as well. John says it's hard because it was long ago. Plus, he wasn't working for the NFL. But like I said, I don't know the exact. I don't know exactly for sure if the NFL can or cannot. Again, I do know, Zeke, for example, was not an employee and did not work for the NFL. So we'll see how much it factors. But let's move on real quick to my Dallas Cowboys. Let's talk about them. I'm not going to say how about them Cowboys quite yet. I'm going to save that for if they beat, of course, Dallas's toughest game at this point is Kansas City at Arrowhead. I mean, the thing is just outscore Kansas City, stop them a couple times, maybe force a turnover. Probably Traymon Diggs will probably the guy that gets that turnover. Jeez. 6 picks in 5 games? I mean, ladies and gentlemen, Only two teams in the whole National Football League have more interceptions than Trayvon Diggs. Two. The Buffalo Bills and the New Orleans Saints. That's it. So Trayvon Diggs by himself has more interceptions than the other 29 NFL teams, because obviously the Cowboys as a team, they're leading the whole league in takeaways or in interceptions. They've got 10. But I will say this about what Dallas did yesterday. I understand. Look, I don't know what was going on with the Giants yesterday. I really don't. Those dudes were dropping like flies. I mean, Saquon Barkley turns his ankle on Jordan Lewis's foot. It was a nasty injury, and his ankle looked like a water balloon on the sideline. It was pretty bad, and I feel terrible for Saquon. He's coming off an ACL injury last year, only played 2 games. He finally comes back, and then he suffers another injury. So hopefully Saquon can get back soon, because he's such a great player and a good dude as well. Daniel Jones. Now, to be fair, that injury was Daniel Jones' fault. Daniel Jones lowered his helmet into Jabril Cox at the goal line and was knocked out of the game, no question, with a concussion. I mean, the poor guy, stood up, tried to walk off, and then he started to stumble. And, there was no way the Giants were going to let him back in the game after that. But what you see a lot of times with the Dallas Cowboys, or at least what you've seen, since their last Super Bowl, they start feeling good about themselves. Maybe they're on a winning streak, and they play a trap game. It's home. I get it. It's a division rival, New York Giants. That does matter. But they're at home. Dak and Zeke are rolling. The Giants, they beat the Saints, but they're 1-3. They're not a good football team. They're not going to challenge us for the division. And credit to the New York Giants. They played Dallas tooth and nail in the first half. Heck, the first 2.5 quarters, really, until Dallas finally pulled away. A lot of times in these games, Dallas would fold and lose. I mean, Dak Prescott had 2 turnovers in the first 3 drives. The first one was not on Dak. He's got Zeke wide open in the flat for a first down. They went for it on 4th down, and the Giants defensive lineman made a great play, tipping it in the air to himself and getting the takeaway. The second turnover was 100% on Dak. Dak catches the snap. He's trying to do too much. He fumbles it. Giants recover. But after that, Dallas's offense could not be stopped whatsoever. And John says, LOL, agree. Y'all have too many great teams. Y'all haven't played too many great teams yet. That's fair. I mean, although you saw the Chargers drop 26 just in the 4th quarter against a great Browns defense, Dallas held them in the whole game to 17. So, and they almost went on the road to, in Tampa Bay. I was there and, played them tooth and nail. I thought they actually outplayed Tampa Bay, but, Tom Brady did what Tom Brady always does and came back in the 4th quarter and broke my heart. But then again, I wasn't surprised. But Grady says, are you a believer in mighty Mike McCarthy yet? Looking like he's an all right hire now that he has a real D coordinator. Also, any thought in Dan Campbell's press conference yesterday? I'll talk about mighty Mike as you referred to him. I still don't trust him. Because here's my question. What does he do? Kellen Moore calls the plays offensively. Obviously, Dan Quinn manages the defenses that he's done a heck of a job. He's been amazing thus far. He's turned that defense around. I don't even recognize. A lot of these guys were on the defense last year. A lot of the guys weren't, but it's night and day. By the way, people criticizing the Jalen Smith move. I didn't see him miss Jalen Smith yesterday. I mean, Jabril Cox played well. Micah Parsons played well. Van Der Esch was amazing. I don't think that, like I said, that's a deep group, that linebacking core in Dallas. I don't think they're going to miss. They're not going to miss Jalen Smith. Too many missed tackles. Lost a step. I wish him the best in Green Bay, but it was the right move for Dallas, as I talked about last Thursday. But what I think happened here is the Cowboys, unlike, say, the Jason Garrett years, even the Wade Phillip years, or if you continue to go back, usually they'd lose these games. They come out kind of flat. Opposition gets a little momentum, and Dallas folds like a lawn chair. Nope. Not yesterday. Running game was outstanding. Ezekiel Elliott has had the bounce back year that I believed he'd have. Dak Prescott on the field almost a year ago to the day. Actually, today is the 1-year anniversary of Dak suffering the ankle injury last year. Dak Prescott did, throw for throw for 3 touchdowns yesterday, over 300 yards. I mean, he was good. You know, CeeDee Lamb was outstanding. Amari Cooper playing with a hamstring injury, he was great. I mean, Dallas has finally found the right mix, because here's what they've done. The first 3 years with Dak and Zeke, they came together in 2016. The first 3 years, the Dallas Cowboys were known as a running team. The offense ran through Zeke. Dak played very well those first 3 years, but that offense ran through Zeke. The next 2 years, as Zeke, took, production-wise went into a downward spiral, and frankly, so the offensive line, they were completely Dak reliant. Dak was having to throw for 400 yards a game just to give Dallas a chance. And I thought that I was starting to have nightmares on opening night when Dak had to throw the ball 58 times and Ezekiel Elliott had 33 total yards. I'm thinking, oh, here we go again. Dak's going to have to be Superman every game. That's why I compared the Chiefs to last year's Cowboys at the beginning of the show. But ever since then, the running game, Zeke, Tony Pollard, Thunder, Lightning, it's what they're called. They've been outstanding. Ty Smith looks like 2014 Ty Smith. It's usually a good thing if you don't hear an offensive lineman's name called a lot. Because if you don't, that means they're doing their job. I mean, you don't randomly talk about the air conditioning unless it's not working. As I always say in the show, that's what offensive lines are. They're air conditioning. They're very important, and we only know they're not working, or we only know the importance of them when they're not working because we just nonchalant. Yeah, everybody's got air conditioning, right? So that's what I saw in the Cowboys yesterday. Inferior opponent, inferior beat-up opponent. Oh, yeah, no question. But that's a team that's feeling really good about itself right now. I mean, Jimmy Johnson, the architect of those championship teams, at least the first 2 championship teams in the dynastic 90s, said after the game on Fox's postgame show, he said, this is the best Cowboys team that I've seen since I said the words, how about them Cowboys? So he's basically saying they can win a Super Bowl. I think they can. I ultimately think they'll run into Tampa Bay. I think they could beat the Rams today. I certainly think they could beat the Cardinals. But, there's that guy down in Tampa. He's different. He's a cyborg. So before I get into the rest of the NFL scores and predict the Monday night game, let's talk a little bit. I did on Friday a little bit, but there's a new development, in the Kyrie Irving situation, which has just been a total mess. So Kyrie Irving was cleared by New York City to practice with the team because they determined that the Brooklyn Nets training facilities, practice facilities were private property. So, but obviously, as we all know, Barclays Center is not private property. I mean, that's, thousands of people get in there to watch concerts and games and whatnot. And so Kyrie Irving got to practice the last couple of days with the team. The Nets, by the way, had a really, really cool outdoor practice on Saturday. If you haven't seen it, go look at the pictures. It was kind of a cool scene. It was kind of, almost like, Rucker Park almost in a way. I mean, it was really awesome. The NBA needs to consider having a game at Rucker Park. I'm just throwing that out there. That they need to do that. Kind of like the baseball did Field of Dreams game. But anyways, Kyrie Irving, though, as of today, he can't play home games. And the Nets play Toronto in Toronto. And, of course, they play Golden State at the Chase Center. They play the Knicks. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's 42, 44. That's 45 games at least that Kyrie Irving will not play this season. Like, it cannot play because he is not vaccinated. And Steve Nash, head coach, he's in a tough position. He acknowledged yesterday, like, look, this is the reality right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think we recognize he's not playing in home games. So, yeah, we are going to have to for sure play without him this year. So it just depends on when, where, and how much.
You gotta cut bait. You gotta cut bait. I know Mark Stein, who's an excellent source from ESPN and in Brooklyn, he said, look, the Nets are pretty much stuck because Kyrie Irving has said has basically told the Nets, like, look, I'm going to retire if you trade me. So what's that going to do now that that report's gotten out? It's going to scare everybody off. Nobody's going to want to trade for a guy who's going to retire as soon as they trade for him, right? And you also factor in with the Nets, they're paying this guy $35 million a year. So there's the money aspect of it. You lose a ton of space, in the cap. You're already paying KD a lot of money, sign an extension. James Harden, while he has not signed an extension, he's one of the highest paid players in all of basketball. So that factors in as well. Grady says if Brooklyn wants to make a statement, they should just buy out his contract. Something else, and you're right about that, something else that needs to be considered. And I heard Chris Broussard of Fox Sports, he was talking about this earlier this morning, that this isn't just going to be a matter of, Kyrie misses home games and he comes with us on the road. It's not that simple. Kyrie Irving now is nothing but a distraction for the Nets in that, let's say the Nets go on a 4-game winning streak on the road. Let's say a couple of those wins come in Milwaukee or in Miami or Philadelphia, like against really good, we think championship contending Eastern Conference teams. Or say they go on the road and, they play well with Kyrie Irving. Or they don't play well with Kyrie Irving. Say they go on a little losing streak. They come home and Kyrie Irving's not available. And say they get hot. These Nets players are going to be hearing the questions from reporters. Are you better with Kyrie? Are you better without Kyrie? Remember when Kevin Durant was hurt with the Warriors in 2019 and Steph and Clay and especially Steve Kerr, they were just bombarded with questions. Are you better without Kevin Durant? Which I said at the time is just ludicrous. You're not better without a guy who's 7 feet and can score anytime he freaking wants. I mean, you're not better without that guy. But something to consider, and this is what I've always said about Kyrie Irving. Grady referred to it. He said, I'd actually consider that if I were Brooklyn, consider that as in buying him out. Guy is a cancer. Kyrie Irving, listen, when he is healthy, he is must watch. I've had a lot of criticisms of Kyrie on this show, but the guy handles the ball, in my opinion, better than anybody that's ever played the game. You can throw Steph Curry out there. You can throw Allen Iverson out there. You can throw Jamal Crawford out there. I'd put Kyrie Irving over any of those guys. He is a wizard with the basketball in his hands. Last year, he had a 50, 40, 90 season. That's only been done by guys like Larry Bird and Steph Curry, like great shooters. He deserves all the credit in the world for that, no question about it. He was outstanding last year, had probably the best season of his career. But there's a lot of dudes in the NBA who are really talented, and Kyrie absolutely is that. I mean, heck, he was the number 1 pick overall in 2011. He barely played in college because he was hurt at Duke. He still was drafted number 1 by the Cavs. Kyrie Irving, first 3 years in Cleveland. Obviously, LeBron had already left to take his talents to South Beach. Kyrie Irving put up good numbers. Made an All-Star game his 3rd year in Cleveland. Won All-Star game MVP. Meant absolutely nothing. The Cavs didn't come close to making the playoffs. LeBron comes back. They make 3 straight finals, and Kyrie, to his credit, hit one of the clutchest shots in basketball history in Game 7 to break my heart as a Warriors fan in the finals. Right? LeBron, Kyrie led the Cavs to their first championship in franchise history and broke the Cleveland sports curse. They get to the finals a year later, lose to Golden State. Okay, Kyrie wants out. They trade him to Boston. And so now we're thinking, oh man, the Celtics. Celtics got to the Eastern Conference Finals with little Isaiah Thomas as their best player. Not that Isaiah Thomas. We're talking 5'9" Isaiah Thomas. So what are they going to do with Kyrie and Gordon Hayward joined the show? Yeah, obviously Gordon Hayward unfortunately got hurt the first game of the season. But Kyrie Irving comes in, plays well. He's an all-star once again. He gets hurt with about a month left in the regular season. And we're thinking, oh, Celtics, good night. It's over. They're done. They'll get knocked out in the first or second round. Nope. They won the first round over Milwaukee. They dominated a team that I thought might sweep them, the Philadelphia 76ers, dominated them in 5 games, a gentleman's sweep in the second round. And they take LeBron James, who had the greatest playoff run of his career in 2018, 7 games with a 20-year-old Jason Tatum. Not the Jason Tatum we see now dropping 50 and 60 points a game. I mean, he was talented as a rookie, but he shouldn't be going against LeBron one-on-one. Jaylen Brown should not be taking, Cavs players off the dribble. And they took LeBron James to a Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals. Kyrie comes back, and we're like, okay, they made the Eastern Conference Finals again and almost got to the finals without him. What's going to happen when they have him healthy in the playoffs? They get blown off the floor in the second round by the Milwaukee Bucks. That's what happened. And so Kyrie left. Kyrie Irving left. And he goes to the Brooklyn Nets. Kevin Durant comes and joins him. Now, Kevin Durant's out the whole season. He had just ruptured his Achilles in the NBA Finals. So he's done for the year. So it's the Kyrie Irving show again. Yeah, the Nets were actually better without him. Again, there was no Kevin Durant. Obviously, James Harden was still in Houston. It's the Kyrie Irving show. 8-12 with him, 27-25 without him, and they made the playoffs. With him this year, they weren't as good as they were without him. James Harden was much better with the Nets this season. I've been a huge critic of James Harden, certainly in the playoffs. Grady says he's unbelievable, but he's also one of the biggest wastes of talents, and it's sad to me because he's awesome. Again, he is as gifted as any player in the entire National Basketball Association. But you got Earth is flat, steak isn't a meat, what's the other one? Christmas isn't a holiday. You've got, the vaccine is a plan to put black people into the computer of Satan. Like, what the heck goes through this dude's mind? He just randomly skips games. Just doesn't tell anybody. Just doesn't show up sometimes. You can't rely on this guy. You got to get him out of the building. You have to. If you got to eat it in the salary cap, so be it. You can still win a championship. I mean, if I told the Brooklyn Nets 5 years ago, in 2021, you're going to have Kevin Durant, James Harden, and a pretty darn good supporting cast. Like, here we go. Let's go to the finals, baby. You don't even tell them that Kyrie was there. They got to get this guy out of the building. John just says, yeah, Boston's not getting back anytime soon. They're certainly in a rebuilding process, although they're a playoff team, but they've got a ways to go. He says Kyrie can't lead the team. I think that's been established. And he cannot anymore be a key member of a championship team because, by the way, he's had issues with injuries. He's had some major, major injuries in his career. So just in that regard, he's not reliable. You get, they said, he had skipped games in January because he was, he eventually said he was distraught about, what happened on January 6th. I get that, but everybody still had to go to work. We were all disgusted and nauseated by it, but you still got to go to work. And Kyrie Irving's work is basketball. He takes time off, but then he's found partying in a club at I think it was his sister's birthday party. It's like, well, are you actually like taking time off to deal with your mental health, or are you just chilling? Like Dennis Rodman took 48 hours off to go to Vegas, but after 48 hours, Michael Jordan had to go in his hotel room and get his butt back to Chicago, right? So, look, at the end of the day, the Nets got to get his butt out of there. They got to get him out of there. So, that's the way it is. You can't trade him. He's already threatened to retire. Just eat the money. Eat the money and send him home. You have to. He can't. You've got something special here. If you're the Nets, you can't squander it. Because how close do we think the Nets are ever going to be in the foreseeable future, post Kevin Durant and post James Harden, from winning a championship? By the way, on that James Harden note, as I mentioned before, he signed an extension. Like, he's going to be a free agent in a couple of years. I've got my criticism of James, but I'll take him in a heartbeat over Kyrie. He stays healthy. At least he is physically there in the playoffs. So we'll see, and we'll see what happens when he's healthy. But Nets got a lot to address, no question about it. Before I get into my Colts and Ravens prediction, let's talk a little bit about what went on around the National Football League on Sunday. It was just crazy. I mean, you had Giants and Cowboys I discussed. You had the Jets-Falcons game in London. I know John, is covering his eyes and ears right now. That was not a pretty showing by the Jets. But can I say this? I said on Friday, the Falcons were missing Calvin Ridley, their best receiver, Russell Gage, their second best wide receiver. And I said, I'm still going to take Atlanta because A, I don't think the Jets are a very good football team. And B, I think this is going to be the Kyle Pitts game. And was it ever, baby? 9 catches, 118 yards, a touchdown. I called it. It was a Kyle Pitts game. And he's, for the first time, he showed what he can do on a football field. And he was special. The Packers barely beat the Cincinnati Bengals in what was a masterclass in missed kicks. I mean, that was hard to watch. People are debating today, was it an exciting finish or was it hard to watch? I'm like, I couldn't wait till the game was over. It was pitiful. Mason Crosby missed a fourth quarter kick, and then Cincinnati's kicker missed a game-winning kick. And then Crosby missed another game-winning kick to send the game to overtime. And then finally in overtime, he hits a field goal that wins it for the Packers and gets them to 4-1 and on a 4-game winning streak. So there's that. John says, we can't and haven't scored in the first half. Shaking my head. Listen, John, look, it's the Jets. It's where young quarterback dreams go to die. Sam Darnold, although Sam didn't play well yesterday. I'll get into that in just a second. Chad Pennington, Mark Sanchez, Geno Smith, now the new starter in Seattle. It's where quarterbacks' dreams go to die. You got the talented quarterback, and I think you got the coach. I really like Robert Saleh. You just got to get the personnel. That's going to take a couple of years to acquire through the draft, obviously, and through trades. They're going to have a high draft pick this year. We all know that, but they got to make it happen. Grady brought up, I don't know if Grady's still in here, but Grady brought up earlier, and I forgot to mention it, the Dan Campbell press conference. The Detroit Lions lost again on a game-winning field goal, this time to another purple team, the Minnesota Vikings on the road. Minnesota kicked a game-winning field goal that won it. Dan Campbell had an emotional press conference after the game. He was in tears. He was talking about how proud he was of a team. Look, I've constantly kind of poked fun at Dan Campbell on the show, but look, I'll give them this. Guy loves football. I can't deny that. Guy loves football. Look, the Lions have been in 2 close games recently, but they look kind of undisciplined. Let's keep this thing going. Jared Goff is now 0-12. It's just like we keep going over and over. Jared Goff's now 0-12 without the likes of Sean McVay as his play caller. So there's that. I know he's in Detroit, but could you get one? Like just one. Grady says, do you think you could trade Kyrie anywhere and get something for him at least? No, I don't. He's threatened to retire. Is he serious? I'm done guessing on what goes through Kyrie's mind. I'm done guessing that. But if I'm a team, I'm not trading for him. No way. I don't care if we're a point guard away from a championship. You can't trust this guy. You can't rely on this guy whatsoever. People have suggested, well, how about they trade Ben Simmons, which, by the way, Ben Simmons, the reports say today from Woj that the 76ers have talked to Rich Paul, his agent, obviously LeBron's agent at Clutch Sports, and Ben might be back with the Sixers later this week. Now, he could still get traded. Who knows? But people suggested, hey, how about you trade Ben Simmons for Kyrie Irving? It's the same guy. You don't know where his head's at. Ben Simmons, you know where his head's at, but he just doesn't care. That's where he's at. But Kyrie is basically a worse version of Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid, you got to worry about him staying healthy and being consistent in the playoffs. Kyrie, you got to worry about health, consistency, availability. At least Joel is present. At least he's there. You don't even have that with Kyrie. John just says, yeah, nobody would trade for him. No, there's no way. Ben coming back, but they said they're still going to look for a trade. I don't doubt that at all. I don't doubt that at all. I'd say you're probably right in that. Back to the NFL. Speaking of another Ben, Big Ben Roethlisberger threw for a couple touchdowns for the Pittsburgh Steelers against the Denver Broncos. Played well. Denver looks like kind of a fraudulent 3-0 team now. They've lost 2 straight to 2 AFC North teams. They've gotten outplayed in every every way, shape, and form. The last two, you've gone on the road to Heinz Field against a quarterback who had been struggling massively his last 10 games. That's not a good loss at all for Denver. No loss is good, but at least maybe you come in the Monday morning after a game, you're like, there's some stuff we can build off of. Denver's not a playoff team. They're talented, but they need a quarterback, and I think they need a new coach. But I still don't think Pittsburgh is making the playoffs. And prayers out to Juju Smith-Schuster suffering a season-ending shoulder injury yesterday. I feel bad for him. He's a good kid. Dolphins Bucks. Let's say it all together. What I always have said this. I got two things about Tom Brady. One is that he's the great outlier. He's great at a lot of things. One of them is that he's the great outlier. Because when quarterbacks start to get to, say Big Ben's age, or last year, Drew Brees, Phillip Rivers, or Eli Manning at the end of his career, and people are like, oh, he's a bum, he sucks. I'm like, that's how they're supposed to look at age 37, 38, 39. Tom is doing it at age 44, and he gets the Dolphins through 5 touchdown passes. 5. He did it again. That's the second game this season he's had 5 touchdown passes. And he did something yesterday. He's surprised. I was kind of shocked to see the stat. This is the first time in Tom Brady's 22-year career that he's thrown for 400 yards and 5 touchdowns. He's never done it until yesterday. He was just, going up and down the field on Miami. Grady says Tampa season started yesterday. Grady, that you could make a strong argument for that, because you're talking about opening night against Dallas. They're juiced up. They win a close one. They beat a bad Atlanta team at home. They should win that game. And then they go and get pushed around by the Rams. Like, that was the Rams Super Bowl. Like, that was the game the Rams circled on their schedule, and they rose to the occasion, and Tampa Bay just wasn't ready. Last week, it's the emotions of Brady coming back to New England. You had a driving rainstorm in Foxborough. It was, the conditions weren't exactly ideal, both as far as weather conditions and emotionally for their starting quarterback. But now now they're focused. Now they're ready to go. They're 4-1, and they look good yesterday. Albeit against an average Miami team that Lord knows they need a quarterback. Grady says Brady and the team could play a lot more freely now, that he doesn't have to worry about the Pats. That's what I'm getting at, is like, look, this is where it starts for Tampa. They got some tough games later in the schedule. They do play Buffalo, but they look good. Saints beat Washington. I can't figure out the Saints at this point. Frankly, I can't really figure out Washington. They're an average football team. The Saints are the most inconsistent team. They're going to be the hardest team to predict all season long. No question about it. I don't know what I'm getting from week to week. Philadelphia beat Carolina. Jalen Hurts played well. Sam Darnold did not. I figured Carolina would bounce back. They got, pushed all over the field by the Dallas Cowboys last week. They're at home against an inferior opponent. Well, it's time to consider, was Carolina a fraudulent 3-0 team? Now, granted, I still think they're going in the right direction. I still deep down believe they have their franchise quarterback in Sam Darnold. But there's some things to reevaluate if you're a Carolina Panthers fan. Titans beat the Jaguars. That's not shocking. Derrick Henry had a couple of rushing touchdowns and helped me en route to my 5-0 fantasy football start. Thank you very much, King Henry. Patriots beat the Texans. I know, Grady, you're a Patriots fan, and to any other Patriots fan watching, I don't know how you feel good about that game yesterday. I don't. It took a fourth quarter comeback to beat the Houston Texans. Probably the second worst team in the NFL. Jacksonville's the worst. They're awful. Again, as I mentioned, they've lost 20 straight games. They're awful. Grady Edwards says I don't. He don't feel good about it. He shouldn't. Hey, Pats Nation, y'all should not feel good about yesterday. Because Mac Jones got outplayed by Davis Mills. And God is my witness, and heck, the film, the tape don't lie. It is my witness. It is y'all's witness. I said that I actually liked, I said it during the draft, I said it at times this season, I liked Davis Mills slightly more than Mac Jones. Davis Mills put on a more impressive tape at Stanford than Mac Jones did at Alabama. Now, Mac's throwing the dudes open by 15 yards. Man, I'd hope he could make those throws. I mean, this is the Houston Texans. They're awful. I picked New England to destroy them yesterday. And it took a game-winning field goal to beat the Texans, who the Patriots division rival Bills crushed by 40. Come on, man. That's embarrassing. Grady says, quite frankly, we'd be 3-2 if Cam was our starter. Yeah, and obviously we talked about Cam when he was released. It was a dicey situation, but look, there's no question Cam's a better quarterback than Mac Jones. But I with the vaccine thing, I think we're pretty much certain why the Patriots let go of Cam. You worry about commitment, you worry about all those things, but you can make that argument. Maybe they beat Tampa Bay last week. Maybe they beat Miami in week 1. So Mac did not look good. Maybe they beat the Saints in week 3. I'm not saying the Patriots would have been 5-0, but you think Cam would have gotten one of those 3 losses to turn into a W. So not exactly a good win exactly a win to feel good about. As I've said, Mac Jones is he's a quarterback in the NFL. He's a backup. He is not a franchise quarterback, and I think he's shown that the first 5 games. Bears lost to the Raiders. Talked about that. Raiders looked flat. Justin Fields played fairly well. He's getting better and better, and so there's some good things for the Bears. Talked about Browns and Chargers. Trey Lance made his first start yesterday against the now 5-0 Arizona Cardinals. He's raw. He's a rookie. This is, in my opinion, San Francisco needs to go with Trey Lance the rest of the way. They need to, it's just like the Bears, commit to somebody. Commit to Jimmy G when he's healthy, which right now he's not, again, or commit to the rookie Trey Lance. If you go with Trey Lance, okay, you're not going to win the Super Bowl. You probably won't even make the playoffs. But just see what he's got over the next 12 games. You build around him, and you go into the offseason feeling better about yourself than you went into this season, or this offseason at least. You got your franchise quarterback. I've said it. This guy needs snaps. This guy needs reps. He needs to get out in the field and play. And he made some good throws. He made some not so good throws yesterday. So we'll see what happens. So that's our review of the National Football League in Week 5. Week 5 concludes tonight between the Indianapolis Colts and the Baltimore Ravens. A quick history lesson for newer NFL fans. This is actually an interesting game because the Colts used to play in Baltimore, and they moved, and Baltimore got its new team, the Ravens. And so I don't know if there's any – I don't think the players necessarily care about that as far as any bad blood between the two. I wouldn't anticipate that. But this is a huge game for both teams. For Indianapolis, you got to keep pace with the Tennessee Titans in the awful AFC South. For the Ravens in the AFC North, you want to be in first place over Cleveland and over Cincinnati. You don't want a 3-way tie with Pittsburgh only a game back. You want to see if you can create some distance. I had the Ravens winning the AFC North before the year started. Lamar Jackson's playing well. And the line, by the way, is Ravens -7.5. That game kicks off at 8:15 Eastern, 5:15 Pacific time on ESPN. Game kicks off in about an hour and 10 minutes or so. So I think it's going to be an interesting game. I think Carson Wentz, as Carson Wentz does, he's going to make some boneheaded mistakes. He's going to have a fumble. He's going to throw a bad interception. I think he's going to turn the ball over twice, and the Ravens are going to capitalize on it. Lamar's going to have over 100 yards on the ground, throw a couple touchdowns. I'll say one to Hollywood Brown and another to, let's say Sammy Watkins. Sammy Watkins and Hollywood Brown catch touchdowns today. John referring to my Baltimore football history says half the players don't even know that, LOL. Grady says, did you know the Ravens adopted the old Baltimore Colts marching band because when the Colts left, the band didn't go with them? I did not know that. Thank you for that history, Grady. So there you go. We got this. Listen, we give you the inside stuff on Carving It Up that you're not going to get on other shows. This is what we do, and this is what our loyal viewers do. So shouts to them, and shouts to everybody that watches the show. We appreciate y'all. So my prediction: Colts are 1-3, Ravens are 3-1. I believe their records, once the night is over, will be flipped. I got the Baltimore Ravens winning this game tonight, 27-20. At this point, the Colts, outside of one game where they looked good against an average Miami team, their quarterback has not given me any reason to believe that this is a team that can do anything should they get to the playoffs, again, in a bad division. I don't know what I'm getting from Tennessee week to week, and we know Houston and Jacksonville are awful. They're going to win 2 games. Might win 2 games combined. Who knows? But I don't think the Ravens cover. Again, the line is -7.5. I got Ravens by 7, so they'll barely not cover, but Lamar Jackson plays well. Carson Wentz makes a couple mistakes, and that's the difference in the game. Frankly, I've said this on the show before. I think the Colts have one of the best rosters in football. I think they got a better roster than the Ravens. Coaching-wise, I like John Harbaugh more, but that's no disrespect at all to Frank Reich. He's an excellent head coach in my mind. I think he's done a great job his first 3 years with the Colts. So there you go. I got Baltimore winning this game. And an old history lesson, Monday Night Football, Ravens win this game 27-20. And so with that is all the time we have for tonight's show. Appreciate everybody stopping by and watching on Facebook Live, YouTube, and Twitter. Be sure to catch it on all 3 of those platforms on Thursday. As always, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time. If you've been listening to Carving Up Podcast, we appreciate that. You've been listening on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcast, Anchor, as well as wherever you get your podcast. Hope everybody has a great evening. I'm going to get off here. I'm going to watch my Red Sox hopefully close out the 1 seed in the AL, Tampa Bay Rays, and advance to the ALCS. Let's go Red Sox. And, of course, watch the Ravens-Colts game as well. So hope everybody has a great evening. Continue to stay safe. God bless you all. Peace out.